Hello and welcome to Nintendo Nostalgia. This is episode 192. I am your host Ryan Black, and I am joined by my co-hosts Joshua Taylor and Chris Warren, and we are back and we are playing with power. Guys, how you doing this week? Chris?
Doing well, thank you. It's been a good few days. How about you,
Good.
Josh?
Off to a decent start. Weekend was good, at least.
Cool. Glad to hear that.
Very cool. Well, so before we waste too much time here, as Jacob would say, let's go ahead and get into what we are radical rexing about. Alright, which one of you lucky guys gets to go first?
I can go first if you want.
Go for it.
So, in a couple hours, I turn 32.
Wow.
So I'm
Happy
very
birthday.
excited for that. Thank you very much. Thank you. I don't know what I'll be doing tomorrow, but I think I'll be hitting up the beach, and we'll be having some family over in like a couple days for like a little party. And today I had a massage, and it was amazing. So I feel completely refreshed because of that. But gaming-wise, I've been playing this game that I've been always wanting to try out. I've been looking at my 3DS eShop wish list and looking at games that, I've always, I've had them on the wish list for a long time, and it's like, I really want to play these. I've just never, what is it, bit the bullet, whatever the saying is, on buying one. So Mighty Flip Champs is a game I've always wanted, and it's a game designed by WayForward, they've developed Shantae, I believe River City Girls, a bunch of other games that are just really well loved. And so Mighty Flip Champs is a very small game. It was originally for the DSiWare, and it's basically like a platform puzzler, and there's just amazing music. The gameplay is amazing. The art style is so cool, and it was only like $7, so I highly recommend Mighty Flip Champs if you want to try this small little fun puzzle game. And
awesome.
I've also, it's great. And I had fun playing Splatfest with you, Ryan, so that was great. That was a really good time.
Team Chicken for the win.
Yes. Did we win, by the way?
We won.
Oh, great. Okay, cool. I did have some trouble trying to connect with one of my friends, though. She was Team Egg, and we just couldn't play together at all, which it makes sense, but like, I don't know, we just didn't think of that,
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess we'll have to coordinate which team we both want to join next time. And I had fun with Josh's stream. That was fun. I was throwing trivia questions at him while he was playing Battletoads.
We'll get there.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Awesome. Josh?
Yeah, so I guess to pick up some from last week real quick, I've been still trying to live stream. It's not super popular, but it's not a huge deal. Been having some fun doing it, just learning, getting some experience at it. However, I guess it was technically Thursday, the new Battletoads came out for the Xbox One. I know that's not a Nintendo system, unfortunately, but and I had two friends here, Zach and Casey, on Friday night. Long story short, we couldn't start until 9 p.m. Eastern time, so we decided to go through the entire game in one setting, which took 6 hours and 37 minutes.
It sure did.
And it was 3:30, 3:45 something in the morning by the time we were done. One of them ended up crashing on my couch. It was insane. I haven't stayed up that late in a long time. Thankfully, we at least had Chris and a couple others on there, and I think Traven, I forget who else, and they were like throwing trivia questions and stuff at us, so that helped. And it was just good to know that someone was there rooting us on. That really made a big difference. So yeah, we did make it all the way through, and we beat it. It's a really great game. It was a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie and say there were parts that we weren't frustrated. Now, some of that, granted, not to throw shade at either one of my friends here, but sometimes when you're trying to cooperatively make it through something, and the message isn't always getting across to each other as well as it could, that makes it harder than it should have been. When no one has any sleep as it is. So yeah, I really enjoyed the game. It's kind of funny. I won't stick on it too long, but it's if you like that kind of stuff, if you like a gun beat 'em up, I'd recommend it. It's got a lot of variety to it. It's not really a kids game, but yeah, other than that, it was a ton of fun. Got like 2 hours of sleep. It was a good time. Then tonight we actually went back and streamed some of the original Battletoads, only like an hour of it because that one's brutally difficult. But it's been a good time.
Yeah.
Been in a real Battletoadsy kind of mood. So I wish that was on the Switch. I know I say that about everything. Everybody says everything. should be
Why
on the
not?
Switch.
Yeah.
But
Me
yeah,
too.
of course.
I was really
But
impressed. Like that was one of the games that when it was announced, I was like, "Oh, that's cool." I'm glad Xbox One owners have that game. But after watching you play it, I'm like, "Ooh, I really wish that was on Switch. I really do hope they port it over." I was really impressed. Like
oh
the
yeah,
cutscenes were awesome. There's a lot of variety. It looked amazing. The music was the
oh
music was
yeah,
so good.
love the music.
Yeah, it was great. I was really impressed.
Yeah, especially from that first reveal, the art style is way different than quite a bit different from what was going on back in the 90s. Not
And
just the graphics, of course, but and I wasn't really sure what I thought of it at first, and I know a lot of people still kind of like to hate on it, but I think it turned out really well, especially in motion. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, there was that. The only other thing, actually, really outside of gaming, it's been kind of a boring time period. I guess right now there's not a whole lot going on. I kind of want there to be, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
Regardless, I did actually start during this whole weekend. Um, my wife and kid were with my mother-in-law. It's kind of a girls' weekend thing, but anyway, so I just kind of had the time to myself. I'd cleaned the house, did that whole long stream and all that, and I picked up something I'd got on sale a while back on the Switch was Devil May Cry, the first one, and I'd never
Hmm.
played any of those games,
Yeah, me too.
so it was kind of the first time trying to go through it. So I played a few hours of it and actually have enjoyed it. I think I'm most of the way through it. I read it's not very long. I'm on like mission 19 or something. But
You,
yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's not too bad.
do you
You can
think it
tell
holds
it's
up?
well. That's what I was about to say. Is some of it you can tell has aged a little funny. Because it's not like the new. I know there's like a new HD version of it or something or remake. I think on Xbox and all of that. But this is just like pretty much the PS2 game ported over to Switch for the most part, from what I understand. So some of it does. Some of the combo stuff is a little simplistic maybe, and like the camera is probably the hardest part to deal with because it's like set camera angles in a lot of situations. It's almost
Right.
like playing a Resident Evil game,
Right.
but with platforming kind of, a little more of that kind of stuff. So I kind of like that because it sets up for like some real cool cinematic kind of shots. But yeah, it's a little awkward when like you're trying to fight something and the camera just shifts, or like you accidentally back into another room and then
Right.
everything you have to walk back in. So there's a couple little odd things like that, but other than that, it's pretty cool.
Mm,
I like it. I would be willing to try a newer game in that franchise maybe in the future.
cool.
But
I've
yeah,
been looking into
other than
that,
that,
but yeah, cool.
yeah. I mean, if you can handle, what am I trying to say? Something with a little age behind it.
Yeah.
um, if
Right.
you can still put up with that kind of stuff, it's really not that bad.
Right. I mean, all of us have put up with games from that
Right.
era, so I think like we can be a little forgiving for that, but I think for new players, I don't know if they'll be as forgiving as we would be. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's about all I got.
cool. What about you, Ryan?
I am just like chomping at the bit to get a hold of both Fight Crab and Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. Just a few more days.
I'm with you on
I'll
one
have
of
to
those.
wait.
There's going to be a physical version of Fight Crab. I can't believe that.
Yeah, I've heard that it's only Japanese only,
Oh,
but
that's fine.
at least that's what I heard. But I mean, if I wanted to import it, I probably would have. But
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna go digital anyway. I'm really excited to play that with friends, and then, but most importantly, like I'm excited to play Crystal Chronicles again. I have been jonesing to play it again, and so I've been waiting on the Switch version, and it's been forever. It's been a long wait, and we're finally getting it. I was like freaking out because it hadn't shown up on the eShop, but I think it was like yesterday, the day before that, finally popped on there, and I'm like, I'm gonna favorite this. This is awesome. I can't pre-buy it, which kind of sucks, but that's okay. I am looking forward to this. Like I'm playing with friends. Like it's the buried entry is like nothing because it's like free for everybody, even if you're on a phone. You just connect with someone with a paid version to get the full version of the game. Like
Really?
it's crazy, and it's only $30 for the main game anyway. So it's insane.
Wow.
Now you do have friend codes you have to exchange, but other than that, like yeah, cross-platform play, pick up your saves on whatever. Like it's
So
a work.
so we can play that with you, just with the free version of it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. You just
From here?
connect to my paid
What?
version, and we can all play.
That's kind of
Oh,
cool. I might
I'm
have to
very
do that.
down for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought everyone had to pay for it. Great.
Yeah, it's like it's so easy to get into the game now. I'm stoked. Absolutely.
I did see something online that's like mildly controversial about it. It's like the online is region locked. So
Yeah, I'm a bit upset about
That
that, so I can't play with any of the Nintendo Village guys.
Yeah. That
mm,
sucks.
yeah. But I mean, I'm curious if if I get the physical version of it, which I think is Japanese only, there's not going to be a North American release of that. Will I still be able to play with, my North American friends? I believe so.
I think so.
Right? Yeah, because it's probably just going to switch over to the English North American version. But I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical to get it because I just like getting physical games, so I just don't want to run into any issues.
Because it is cross-platform on PS4 and mobile. That's why it's region locked. It's so much harder to get everything to sync up overseas, let alone like across the country or something. So
That makes sense.
yeah, that's the challenge of having all of the awesomeness that is easy to pick up anywhere on the go or or like at home, and yeah. So but yeah, I am so stoked. I am just beyond excited for this game. I've been waiting. This is my game of the year so far, like most anticipated game. Like I know I've played this game 100 times, but I just love playing it with friends. And now everybody who didn't have the game and didn't have a Game Boy Advance and the link cable and everything, like, and had to schedule your times all together, like, we can just do it over the internet with friend codes, and it'll be awesome. I cannot wait. It's just 3 more days. The thing that like has me worried. It says it's kind of tentatively scheduled for the 27th. So I'm like, please just don't delay it anymore. I need this in my life right now.
Yeah.
It's the thing that's gonna get me back into playing Switch games.
When
Other
you
than
said,
that-
"Oh, it's only 3 days away," I was like, "Oh wait, but it comes out in August," and I was like, "Oh, it's August and it's almost September."
Yes.
So it's Thursday. So that's kind of weird. That's the day before the direct, right?
Ooh.
Something like that. Yeah, right.
There's totally a direct this week. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. That's the rumors flying around anyway. But yeah, I got into Splatoon 2, and I always forget how much I love that game and how addicted I can get to that. Um, After I got off playing with you, I kept playing and playing and playing, and then we were able to. I was like, I put it down. I can't play anymore. I go downstairs. And Chris texts me. He's like, "Hey, do you want to play some more matches?" I'm like, "Oh no, I'm getting ready to go to bed." I'm like, "Oh, but I totally forgot something upstairs. Let me just go upstairs and oh, my charger's up here. Wait, my Switch is still on. I left the TV on. Maybe I'll just continue playing."
Man,
I'm
So I
so
hopped back
glad that
on.
worked out. That was awesome. I was like, I don't know if he's gonna play with me, but that was great.
We both
But I
hit
don't-
Chicken Kings, and that was
Just
awesome.
so you know, I was I wasn't I was quiet and like not texting you during it because I was too busy watching Josh's stream trying to find trivia
Ah.
questions to throw him off
Yeah.
with.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. I would have joined you guys.
That's okay. Yeah, you only have like a few seconds in between each match. So during those matches, I was just
That was great.
Googling like weird Nintendo trivia questions and then just copying and pasting into the chat. And then I look at the chat like once the match was over to see if anyone got it. But yeah, it was fun.
Sleep deprived, trying
Yeah.
to read all that. It was
It was-
a good time.
Yeah, I was very
If
entertained
anybody-
by how sleepy you were.
If anybody wants the whole 6.5 hour version, it's out there on YouTube and Twitch and everything. It's pretty entertaining once we get to that point. It just
Yeah.
continues to spiral out of control.
Great. Very good time. We should do that again.
So I don't know who has the game in the NOS community, but I would love to do a Splatfest for Splatoon 2. That would be
Oh,
awesome. Even if we could
Sure.
incorporate it in our great debate episode this year, since there's an election year and everything, like we could do a Splatfest and do like the two picks of games or characters
sure.
or whatever. Who's
I
the better
love
character?
that.
Who's the better game? What's the better system? Perhaps. I don't know. We haven't chosen a topic yet, so we're open to suggestions for sure.
We need to get. I do want that Splatfest thing. I've always thought about
Yep.
doing one of those because you can set up your own now. I think you can pick
Yep.
colors, but that would
Yes,
be pretty
yes.
sweet. We haven't
There's
taken
so
advantage
many
of that yet.
options. Yeah, I was talking to Ryan about that. There's like 40 maps or so. There's so many more maps
There's
than
a
the
lot.
first one. And there's all these colors color combinations that you can choose from. You can even choose the Splatfest designed stages, because for each Splatfest they designed the what's Shifty Station.
Yes.
It's like a different layout each time, and you can choose between all of the ones that have appeared so far. So there's so much customization for something like that. So yeah, I'd be really down for that.
That would be totally cool. Jacob got rid of Splatoon 2. I still get on him for that. We could all be playing together with him too, but I know
I'll
he's
have to
busy
guilt him
anyway.
into it,
So yeah, I completely understand. But oh man, I love Splatoon 2. Like I intended to get on for Salmon Run, and Salmon Run happened to be random weapons like every time instead of like set weapons that you could learn to get like work with. It was just always changing, so you never really got good with anything if you haven't been playing like regularly. So I was like, yeah, well, and then the Splatfest started. I'm like, I'm just gonna focus on the Splatfest, and it was great. Yeah, don't forget to log in and get your sea snails. For those who are, well, I guess if you picked egg as well, you'll get something. But the chickens are king. Chicken a la king.
That was awesome.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the main topic. We have pushed this topic off so many times, and we have finally gotten around to doing this. This is the wonderfully artistic Okami. All right, Chris, when did this game come out?
Okami came out in early 2006, and it was developed by Clover Studios, which has come to be known as, the Clover shut down, but most of the developers went on to create their own studio, which is now known as Platinum Games, which I believe is my favorite developer at the moment. They've just made so many amazing things ever since, not even including Okami. They've made Mad World for Wii, which I think is highly underappreciated.
I have that like sitting right over here. It's awesome.
So good. And Bayonetta, which now a lot of people know because thankfully she's made it into Smash Brothers. So Clover Studios was a fantastic studio that made Okami, and luckily a lot of the developers are still making some still excellent games. And it was published by Capcom. And Okami, I didn't know this until recently, means wolf. I don't know why. It's actually, Okami is my second favorite game of all time. And I would say Banjo-Kazooie is my first favorite, but it just never occurred to me to think about what Okami means. So, yeah, Okami means wolf, and it was originally for the PlayStation 2. Later got ported to the Wii, and then was ported to many other systems once the HD version came out.
Yeah, this was also the same studio as Beautiful Joe.
Yes.
I believe there's like different branches within the studio. Like they had Team Beautiful that worked on that. I don't know if they're the exact same thing as Okami Team, but yeah, I always associate Okami with Beautiful Joe in a lot of ways. And it's cool to know that like Platinum is kind of a relation or a merge or what have you, because you can see that somewhat in Wonderful 101. But we're patiently awaiting the return of Okami and also for Beautiful Joe. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed for both. You know, I don't know if you mentioned or not, but were they involved in making Okami Den?
Ooh, that's a great question. I want to say, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe that game came about because one of the creators had a strong desire to make a sequel, and so they pitched it to Capcom or something. And so I don't know if it's that exact team, because I believe they disbanded right after Okami. So I think
Okay.
some, spiritual successor team developed Okami Den.
It was still published by Capcom, and it's like that one was like baby Okami.
Yes, Chibi Okami.
Yes, it was adorable.
So cute. Yeah. I have not played that one yet, but I definitely plan on it very soon.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's like Mobile and Game Studio Inc. It's a pretty generic name for a DS title. So that was the Okami Den, and it's one word. It's got a similar art style and everything. So yeah, but let's get back into the main core of the game. Um, so as far as first time experiences with the game, um, Chris, what was your first experience with this game?
I remember, I believe it was on IGN during E3. I believe it was E3 2005 when, you get a whole burst of information about these new games that are just announced. And I just was mesmerized by these images of Okami. And I only saw the images at first, and then when I saw the game in motion, my jaw just dropped. This game is unspeakably beautiful when you see it in motion. And looking back, I didn't really realize that they were the same team that made Beautiful Joe, as you mentioned.
Hmm.
So you do kind of see a little bit of that in the style, but it was just so striking to me how this team incorporated traditional Japanese art and traditional Japanese styles into this game. That's not something that's very common, especially
Hmm.
for games that appear in North America. And I was really heartbroken because this is a game that only came out on PlayStation 2 at first.
Hmm.
And I had a GameCube at the time, so obviously I wouldn't experience it. And this, to me, felt like a game that would be a perfect match on GameCube because, Nintendo's just known for their awesome, unique adventure games. But when I did finally play it on the Wii, when it got ported to the Wii, I was just in like a really dark place in my life. I was really depressed, and I really needed something unique and whimsical and uplifting to kind of lift my spirits. And this game definitely did that. Um, there's such a whimsical, dreamlike vibe to this game, and it's just this massive, profound adventure game that I think anyone can enjoy. And I don't want people to be intimidated by the name as well. Like you hear the name Okami and it sounds, a little off-putting because it's like a Japanese word that we're not familiar with. But this is a game that anyone can play, and it's very localized for American audiences. So I highly recommend it.
This game has been put up on a pedestal next to Zelda in its style. And it's like puzzles and things like that. So if you take that into consideration, if you need something else to drive you to pick up this game and try it.
Definitely. And actually, I thought about it the other day. It's also kind of similar to Banjo-Kazooie in a way.
Hmm.
While it's not really a collectathon, it does kind of have that similar Metroidvania element to it in a way. You do go back to old areas and use your new abilities to find secret items. So there's that too if people are into that.
Yeah, yeah. Josh, what was your first experience with this game?
Well, so for me, I believe I just picked this up around, I would say a year ago or so, if I remember correctly, on the eShop. Was the first time I played it. This just, I guess back in the day, like it just wasn't one of those things that I guess would catch my eye. I think I guess just in more recent years, I've become a little more interesting with what kind of games I try out. But yeah, like actually after picking it up, I think I talked to a friend some about it that kind of talked me into it. Um, I did really enjoy it. Now, when I've picked it up in the past, I only made it about 10 hours in. Granted, I think it was just the time period, and a lot of times if a new game comes out in the middle of something like that, a lot of times it kind of gets overshadowed. And I couldn't tell you exactly what had got me to put it down, but I do kind of want to go back and put a little more effort into it because there wasn't much that sticks out that like I can't say that really bored me or that I didn't like. I think I got a little bit stuck a time or two, but it wasn't really any big deal, about as much as you would in some Zeldas. But yeah, I mean, immediately I did think, well, almost immediately. I'll say with some of the gameplay, the fact that you're a wolf and you're a little partner character, it did make me think of Twilight Princess. Though what's kind of funny is what I learned, like you said, it came out on PS2 first, so this actually came before Twilight Princess. Because your partner's kind of like Midna, and then you're the wolf that doesn't really say anything, and that sort of thing. Now, with the art style, I wanted to speak on that. You know, I guess you all know, like, I'm not a huge fan of, like, anime usually and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But this, yeah,
Regrettably.
I'm just not. I guess I pick sometimes and push it just to be funny, but yeah, this is more of like that traditional Japanese kind of style, and I don't feel like with something like anime, I feel like it's just done to death, and maybe that's part of why I don't really appreciate it. Is it's just the same, like, to me, I know someone will hate me for this, but to me, like, Fire Emblem looks like Final Fantasy. Not the game. I just mean like the faces. It all looks the same. It just looks generic to me. Anyhow, moving on.
No, you're not wrong. I can get behind that. I like both games, but no,
yeah. I don't. Yeah, but with this, I actually really like the art style. Like, it's more of a, like I said, like that traditional Japanese kind of look. Like the Hanafuda cards, that sort of thing. It makes me think of that. I guess that sounds kind of uncultured just comparing it to one thing like that, but really it's just not something I feel like you see a whole lot of, especially in North America, like you said. It's not something I've seen a lot of games, movies, anything like that. And I feel like they pulled it off very well. It's very, maybe clean is the word for it. Like playing the HD version of it on the Switch, I think it holds up really well. Something like, it doesn't look like Wind Waker, but kind of like how Wind Waker holds up, where it's kind of cartoony. You can maybe tell there's a little bit of age to it. I don't want to sound like I'm talking bad about it, to be honest, because it still looks really nice. But other than that, I still think it holds up really well. Like, if I didn't know it was however old it is now, I would probably just assume it was like a newer, really meaty indie game, maybe something like that. But yeah, I really appreciate the art style. I think the main character, Okami, or, well, I can't think of her name. They nickname
Amaterasu?
gives you. Yeah.
Oh no, the partner. Sorry, I don't know her
your
name.
partner nicknames you Amy, so I usually say
as
Amy.
soon as your little buddy.
Okay.
So yeah, I just think all that's beautiful. I'd seen what was it? An art book. I forget who had it. Yeah, I know you've got one too. Somebody I went to Germany with, I think, had one as well, and it was just beautiful checking out all of that. So that's a big part of it. Yeah, there we go. I know everybody can't
Holding
see,
it
but
up,
that's
yeah. We should probably make this a video podcast one day, but well.
We could totally do this live. That'd be fun.
I guess not to rant too long, but but the gameplay itself, I think if there was one thing that kind of put me off after a little while, if I can remember correctly, I'll have to go back. But I played with just the Pro controller because my Joy-Cons all drift. I actually need to go send them in. I've got the slip and everything. I've heard the Joy-Cons are a little bit better, maybe, because you can actually draw with one of them, like with motion. I don't know. Okay. Well, anyway, some of the like powers and stuff, the further you go, the more of these little like drawings you can do, which is pretty cool. But I felt like it was just like a lot of stop and go in certain parts, where it's like, okay, I got to stop and hold this button, and it freezes time, and I got to draw a circle around this, and then like half the time I wouldn't draw the circle correctly, and it wouldn't pick up. So that was kind of annoying. But I don't know if that was more my own fault, the controller I was using. I'm not sure. And some of it, like I said, I just had too much going on at once. But
It depends on what system you played on. I've played it on Wii and the Switch, and there's definitely some things I like about both in different ways. Um, but I guess if we could backtrack just a little bit, for those who may not be familiar with Okami or know what it really looks like, it basically looks like you just, if you were to think about Mario 64 jumping into a painting, it's basically if you were to jump into a traditional Japanese-styled watercolor painting. The entire world just looks like a watercolor painting. There's this cell shading to it, which is kind of similar to Beautiful Joe, except it's a completely 3D adventure. But what makes this game unique and kind of different from other 3D action adventure games is that since you are a wolf who happens to be a god, you have this unique ability to summon something called the celestial brush techniques, which is what Josh is talking about, which is where you can pause the game at any moment for the most part, and there's going to be this like parchment filter that covers the screen, which allows you to have control over this mighty brush, which I believe is called the Celestial Brush. And what Josh was talking about is that you can draw these symbols on the parchment using this brush with your controller. And if you draw these symbols, they'll translate into a certain action or an item that will help you in the game in some way. And so it really depends on how you play the game. I was thrilled when the game was being ported to the Wii, not just because I wanted to play it, obviously I did, but because the Wii seemed like such a perfect match for this game, because you're able to just point and draw with the Wii remote. I will say, though, on the Wii, it was slightly wonky. It was not Clover that made the game, but it was kind of ported by Ready at Dawn, who is a very capable and talented studio, but the translation in that way was a little wonky. I will say, though, on Switch, while the Joy-Cons, like using the gyro controls, that's okay. I highly recommend using your finger on the touchpad if you use it on handheld mode. Huge difference, and I never really had any issues with that, and also it just feels that much more immersive that you're doing the drawing yourself. But I will say that I'm pretty surprised that using the joystick on the Pro Controller, which is what I've been using, is like not bad. That's pretty doable. But I would definitely recommend, as I said, using your finger.
I almost never use handheld mode. Part of the reason is I just don't. My Joy-Cons are a mess, and part of it is honestly I just like to use my big HD TV, when I can. So I end up not using that as often as I could. But I understand some games sort of work better that way.
I'm the same as you. I prefer having it more of like this cinematic experience on my TV. I'm not a big handheld Switch user because I just don't find like the regular Switch to be that comfortable. Like my Joy-Cons they're a little wobbly. They're not that stable. I don't know if everyone else experiences that too, but and especially for a game that's like Okami, this like epic, massive adventure, it's great to have it on your TV because it's just so, as I mentioned before, this like profound, massive adventure. But it is very cool. There's something very novel and exciting about bringing Okami with you. I remember when I was going to classes at my university, you have to take the bus to get to class, and so I have about 20 minutes to kill, and I just couldn't believe that I was playing Okami on the bus, and I still can't wrap my head around that. And even if I'm like just sitting in my living room with Okami in the chair, I'm just like, I'm holding Okami in my hands right now. This is crazy. So in that way, it does feel like a fresh experience, even if you've already played it on like PS2 or Wii. There's just something about holding Okami in your hands and playing it that way, and it still looks great. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I definitely can resonate with that. Just with Final Fantasy VIII, like having that finally on portable system like that is awesome for me. Like Nintendo no less. So I get that feeling. My first experiences with the game, I saw it in magazines. It might have been Game Informer, and In fact, I'm pretty sure it was Game Informer, and I loved the look of it. And then I heard that it was coming out for PlayStation 2, and I was really bummed about that. And even when I got a PS2 later, like I never got the game, and I don't know why. I don't know why. Maybe it was just that because it came to PlayStation first, like
Well, it
I
came
couldn't
very late into the
justify it.
PlayStation 2's life.
Yeah, I didn't get a PS2 till way later.
Oh, then I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I guess I was running around with both PlayStation 2 and GameCube at the same time. So I don't know. Maybe it was just a price thing. I don't know. I never could justify going and picking it up. But it's something that's always fascinated with me, and I still haven't picked it up to this day on any console. I need to. I know.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's insane.
No, I have
You need to do
never
that
played
now.
the game on my own as I owned it. I played demos of the game. I want to say it was like at a GameStop or a Game Crazy or something like that. So I did play some of that, just a little bit though, not a whole lot, and kind of the intro stuff. And I did enjoy what I played of that. And then and I really played Okami heavily when I got Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and played Okami a lot there. I definitely enjoyed that. So that's where my nostalgia is for Okami, is on that game, which I had to play it to get my money's worth out of it. After I'm salty about that game because Fate of Two Worlds did me dirty with their releasing the everything unlocked version later, and like me
I
being a
didn't
day
know
one
that.
adopter, and yeah, it was really short turnaround. It was like a couple months or something like that. I was so upset. At least
I
that's what
hate
it felt
when they
like to
do
me.
that.
So, but yeah, I absolutely love playing Okami and in that game. So that's kind of my first experiences with it, but just loving the art style. And I always agreed, like, they made a good choice. It's almost timeless with its cell shading, and that's the best part about it. Like, you can port it a bunch of different times. Yeah, they give it an HD look and stuff, but like it just holds up with that cell shading.
Yep, I agree. And I was really surprised that when I got the HD version, that you do notice a few more details because it's now in HD. It's still the same game, but you realize how much effort they put into this game, with the textures that they use and the animations of all the characters. I had a smaller TV, and it was okay at the time, but there's just so many little animations you just didn't see. I didn't even notice that one of the kids was like holding a dragonfly, and the dragonfly itself had its own animations. It had like a pet dragonfly, and yeah, these like subtle movements that really make these characters feel so alive. And it's pretty. It goes without any debate that the most striking thing about this game is the graphics, and there's just all these subtle details, like when you're running in the field, there's like a flower trail that follows you. Like, you never see that in any other game. And it really gets the message across that you are this powerful god that is really in tune with nature, and really seeks to bring beauty into the land. And the theme of beauty, I think, is a very cool overlying theme across the entire game, because everything in this game is beautiful. The music, the gameplay, the story, how it looks, everything is just beautiful.
Okay, so now I remember why I never picked up Okami. This is the stupidest thing. There was a coworker I was working with, this girl that swore that Okami was infinitely better than Zelda. And so I was determined that I wasn't going to play that game because they said it was better than Zelda, and I knew that was not true. And I didn't want to be wrong, even though,
Honestly, I think it is. I really do. This is a pretty complete action adventure game, and they've thought of everything, and the more you play, the better it gets. And it's a very big adventure. Like, it took me about 40 or so hours to beat it. And something that they do that's very cool is they kind of, I mean, this is a mild spoiler alert, but about halfway into the game, they make you think like, oh, okay, you saved the day, and then they're like, oh, just kidding, there's a whole lot more, and a whole.
I love it when they do that.
Yeah, there's so many more levels, and it gets so much better too. It doesn't like decrease in quality after that, as if they ran out of ideas. They save their best ideas for last.
Awesome.
Yeah, the levels are just so creative and just wild the more you play it. some of my favorite levels come towards the end, and I guess I'll give a mild spoiler alert just to kind of describe some of the levels that I just want to describe some of the locations. One of them is this beautiful bamboo forest, like treehouse forest village. And this other one, this is my favorite. It's like a dragon palace that's under the sea. And it takes place in this like seashell, this like unique coral seashell kind of thing.
Huh.
And it's so cool. They just go all out with those levels. Yeah.
Now, is there a lot of this is kind of around that era? Was there a lot of like quick time events and things like that where you had to do button presses at certain times to react to things, or was
Yes.
that was kind of like, was that reserved for like boss fights, or was it just throughout the whole game, peppered throughout? Was that pretty much the gameplay? Was it more of just like a hack and slash feel sometimes, or what was it kind of like a fusion of all those things? Like what's the gameplay like?
One of Okami's strengths is the amount of variety in the game, and I know I might sound like a broken record if you've listened to some of the episodes that we've recorded before, because I did say this about Beyond Good and Evil, but it's very similar where it just has so much variety in the types of gameplay that exists. Like you mentioned, there's definitely what's it called? How did you describe it? Like action?
Hack and slash or
Like where you press a
Quick
button
time
at a certain
events?
time?
quick
Yeah,
time, yeah, quick time events.
yeah. There's definitely quick time events, and the fighting mechanic is definitely hack and slash, but there's a lot of depth to it. I wouldn't say a lot of depth, but like there's a good amount of depth to it where you could kind of like customize things to be more suited to your style,
Mhm.
and but throughout the world you'll find rhythm mini games. You'll find kind of like a whack-a-mole mini game.
Mhm.
There's like this dig dug puzzle game that you encounter with this one guy. There's like a racing mini game. There's so much variety to it, and it helps to keep the experience fresh throughout the entire time.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool.
But it's mostly like overall, it's basically, a 3D action adventure game. You run around, you fight certain monsters along the way, and there's like Metroidvania elements where you gain new items and weapons, and then you progress that way.
Now the story is very I mean, it has its green elements to it. It's the flowers growing behind. Is this any kind of like environmentally friendly game? Like, is that the message here, or is it just something that is a part of the character but not necessarily explored? Is like, are you trying to grow things and restore land as this wolf that brings life wherever it goes?
Right. It's kind of part of the theme of the game is that, I mentioned before beauty is a theme, but it's also finding beauty in nature and just like the world around you. So, yeah, the game is basically about restoring beauty to the world, and you find these like cursed areas, and you want to use your special powers to restore them to their full original beauty. But
Mhm.
it makes a strong effort to try to emphasize, the beauty in being respectful to nature.
Mhm.
One of the most unique parts of the game is that you find these stray animals. They could be a bird, they could be a pig, or a tiger even. And there's like this quick optional, I don't know if you would call it a mini game, but you can feed these animals. And when you feed these animals, there's this 1 minute cutscene of you just watching this animal eat the food that you've given them. And it's this really serene, beautiful cutscene where you just like appreciate this meadow where they're eating, and you just kind of like feel one with nature in a way. It's very
Mhm.
peaceful. So I think that they are trying to, emphasize appreciawould nature.
Man, I kind of want to experience this in VR now. Get immersed in that world that way.
Ooh, yeah, me too now.
That would be pretty cool. I mean, just from hearing that, like playing Breath of the Wild in VR, just imagining what other games would be like in a VR setting, and that sounds like Okami would be right up that alley. to see that. That would be really cool to see.
Agreed.
But
I'm glad that you brought up Zelda, because this game, it plays a lot like a Zelda game, which I believe you mentioned before,
Mhm.
but it also pays tribute to Zelda in some really interesting ways. Like if you think about the story, part of the story is that after 100 years, a dark force has returned and brought evil onto the land, and it's up to a swordsman to kind of save the day.
Mhm.
And obviously that's like a tribute to Zelda, but also, what was the other thing? Uh, some of the levels kind of pay tribute to Zelda as well. There's like a windmill level, which is also in Ocarina of Time. So there's these other subtle nods to Ocarina of Time, which came shortly before it, and I did appreciate those. I didn't understand them at the time because I didn't play Ocarina of Time, but after I did play Ocarina of Time, I was like, oh, some of this is in Okami. So it's very interesting and cool that they did that.
so it looks like it's set in Japan. Are there like real Japanese locations that you visit, or is it more fantasy Japan?
Definitely
Um,
fantasy
okay,
Japan, for sure.
okay. I know we've seen some of those, like the Japanese, the red gates and things like that, and you see that in the game. So I kind of
Right.
wondered if there was like, if it was what level of that was.
No,
Um,
they just incorporate like parts of Japanese culture into the game, and I
okay.
guess that kind of goes under that umbrella. But what some of the items are, like sake, and yeah, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Very cool. So I wonder if if this game is going to get any kind of overhaul, not just in HD, but to be reimagined some way, to be taken to the next level, if you will. And what they would do with that. Sure, they can do a sequel. I mean, they've done Okami Den, which I want to say Okami Den was it a prequel or no?
I believe so, but don't
I
quote
think
me
I
on
remember
that.
reading that a long time ago.
Same,
So
yeah.
don't quote me on that. But
Right.
so what would they do going forward with this? And again, maybe the end of the story, heartbroken, like something happened. Okami had to disappear or something, sacrifice himself or something like that. I don't know the story, so don't count that as spoilers because I don't know what I'm talking about. But and what would the future of Okami be like? It'd be kind of cool to see them go forward with this art style, but again, like this is gonna take a lot of work and a lot of care, like much like a Cuphead or something like that. Like the art style is just so well done. Like it would take some dedication to really pull that off. And I'd like to see this go somewhere else, outside of just upresing it to HD. Um, do you have any ideas how they'd expand the gameplay or what they do in the future?
Well, first of all, I find it really fascinating that Okami is still kind of relevant in
Hmm.
gaming culture at the moment.
Yeah,
When it came out, it sold so poorly to the point where Clover Studios had to shut down like
that's really
immediately
sad.
afterwards. Yeah, exactly. And but luckily it's developed this cult following, and now it's kind of branching into like a mainstream following in a way,
Hmm.
with it being ported to all the mainstream systems that we have.
Yeah.
And this is, a 15-year-old game. And
Hmm.
a lot of people that I know, maybe not the most hardcore gamers, but some people have heard of this game. Um, Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But with Okami, I could see it. I could see them kind of like mimicking what Zelda does, since it does pay tribute to Zelda. So
Hmm.
I think it would be, my idea is basically doing what Zelda does, where it takes the similar formula that has been used in the past and kind of tweaks it with like a new gimmick or something. So perhaps instead of the celestial brush technique, you could put a little spin on that. Maybe use some of the technology that is around at the moment. Like you mentioned, VR. That would be a really cool game if they, made a spiritual successor or sequel to Okami using VR as one of the main attractions for this game.
So most of the screenshots of the game is just Okami, but you've mentioned like a partner or someone. How does that work in with the story?
You meet several characters in Okami, and that's one of the greatest things about the game is that there's so many characters that have so many personalities and these unique backgrounds to them. Asun is your like main partner on this adventure, and he's this little flea-sized man
Oh, okay.
that is kind of like Navi in a way, if you think of
Yeah.
like Ocarina of Time, if I'm getting the right fairy for that game. Um, and yeah, so he basically just points you in the right direction sometimes, and he helps with the story. But there are other characters that you meet as well, but they're kind of like temporary partners that you have for
Hmm.
whatever moment that is. But there is one character that you have a deep relationship with throughout the game, and I believe his name is Susano, who is this swordsman who's very clumsy, he's very lazy, but he gets all the credit for saving the day at random points, and
Uh-huh.
Okami does all the work. So it's kind of like this ongoing joke where Susano is just so lazy, but when he finally builds up enough courage, he gets all the credit for these accomplishments that Okami worked so hard for.
Huh, very cool. Sounds like a masterpiece, honestly. And I don't hear enough people talking about it. But those who I have that are fans of it say it's one of the greatest. So that's really cool to hear that.
Mhm.
No, Josh, what kind of caused you to fall off the bandwagon? There was something else that came out that interrupted you from it, or I know said you put about 10 hours or so into it. What kind of distracted you from that? Because it sounds like in every way, awesome game. What kind of things maybe detracted from your keep sticking to it? Just time?
Yeah, that's probably a big portion of it because, I like a lot of 3D Zelda games. That's my
Mhm.
favorite way to play Zelda games. I love them. And this kind of reminds me a lot of that, in a lot of ways, not completely. So yeah, in a lot of ways, it's right up my alley. But I wish I could even tell you. I wish I could remember exactly what came out around then. Last year, granted, when I started playing this, was a really busy year. I had a lot. Not only did I have a lot going on, there was more games coming out at the time. And if there was something, I could tell you if there was a big first party Nintendo game that comes out right after something like this, it's probably going to distract me. And
Mhm.
it's no offense to this game, it's just the timing and the fact that it is an older game and things like that. It's just somewhere in there it got sort of overshadowed until the point where I was like a month later and I'm like, I barely remember where I was at. And I honestly, I think I may have even got a little stuck somewhere and not sure where to go next. Um, but yeah, like I've really been trying to think of exactly what it was that kept me from going back at first, but I don't know if there really was a good reason for that. It's just sort of the timing of it because it does feel like a pretty big commitment.
Mhm.
Like I said, I was about 10 hours in, and granted, while there's several Zelda games that are a lot longer than that, I just felt like I hadn't made it as far as I hoped I would at that point. Um, but yeah, I would definitely be tempted to still go back to it, at the right time, of course.
Right. Right.
I
Um,
think if I could just mention one thing, I think that the controls are a little odd. Um, while the game does largely play like a 3D Zelda game, something that I I kind of noticed at the time when I played it, but kind of forgot about because I was just like, oh, maybe it's just my controller or the system. But this translated over to the Switch as well. I just find the movement of the game a little odd. And Josh, I'm not sure if you might remember this, but when you move in the game, you kind of have to wait until you run. So if you press forward, you'll kind of run, but you run
Right.
kind of slowly, and then you have to
like a
like
trot.
wait 2 seconds. Yeah, exactly. Then you have to wait 2 seconds, and then you run a little bit faster, and then you wait another 2 seconds, and then you're running at full speed. And there's
Mhm.
no manual way of running fast. You just have to like wait. And it's not a big deal, but for certain areas, it's just like annoying and odd. But otherwise, the controls are kind of good. I just find that there's just something about that control scheme that's a little off-putting to me. Since the game is so large, um, I just want to run around. I don't know. Just wanted to
Yeah.
throw that up there.
And maybe that was just again trying to think more back to what I was having some issues with. For some reason, I think I did get lost like several times. Those last couple of hours, I think it sort of opens up, which is cool. Um, but I think there was just a little bit of I don't really know where to go next. So I don't know if that was really the game's fault or as much as it was maybe just my own and not putting the time and patience into it that it probably deserves.
Sometimes they give you very vague directions. When I was replaying it like about a week or so ago, there was one part where I was just like, it's not telling me what to do at all. And I had to look it up, and I was like, oh, I never would have thought of that. But I will say, largely, the whole experience is pretty, like, you do get the idea of what you need to do next. But there are some parts where you're just a little bit lost. So I can definitely understand that, Josh. There's so much detail attached to all of these characters. They all have these really deep backgrounds, and I didn't even realize this when I was playing it, but since I'm a huge fan, I mean, our listeners can't see this, but I have the strategy guide, I have the art book, which is literally my favorite thing in the entire world, and I just got the first four figures. I think that's their name, the statue, which looks just stunning and is probably my favorite piece of merchandise that I've ever owned. So I'm a huge fan, but when I was looking into the details of the game, the art book gives a lot of extra, ditties that you wouldn't even know within the game. But just one of the characters, there's a lot of like enemies that you fight, and just one of the enemies has this really interesting background. Like for example, there's like this wheel thing that has like a big ear. And the background behind that is that it represents the souls of people who do not listen to advice. And so I just found that so interesting that this little character that you fight it's like pretty common, but it's just like this, not a very difficult boss fight, but it has this unique background attached to it with like these symbolic qualities, So I just thought that was really interesting and really illustrates how much effort and time and passion the team put into this game.
Yeah, it's kind of cool when you're like just casually going through the game, but then like I think it gives something for like the hardcore fans to dig into later on. I don't like that sort of thing, and especially when it like kind of ties into real world like folklore and stuff like that. I think is always fun.
Definitely. Yeah, a lot of the characters were inspired by actual folklore, so it's fun to see the connections with that.
I definitely love to see this art style fused with gaming. It's beautiful.
I believe Platinum Games did use this art style again, or at least planned to, for this mobile game that was never released. I don't remember what it was called, but it was pretty controversial because it was like this stunning, amazing art style. I think it was like a fighting game or something, but it was going to be mobile only. I think this was like 2 years or so ago, and everyone was just like, this looks amazing, but I don't want this to be a mobile game. Put it on consoles, But I believe that got canceled, which I have mixed feelings about.
Okay. That's a bummer.
But I do hope that it does come back, like you said. And luckily, some games since this game came out have kind of tried it in their own unique way. Like Muramasa comes to mind, which also was for the Wii. So also
so
very,
good. I own that one.
Love that game. And hopefully that comes to Switch now that I think of it.
Yeah. Did I see something on that recently? I felt like I saw a hint of that maybe coming to Switch. I don't know where I saw it. Am I digging around? But
yeah, it sounds familiar. Yeah.
That Platinum Games mobile game, World of Demons, was what it was called. And
it does look like Okami, right? I'm not crazy.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, they're calling it the spiritual successor to Okami. So.
Oh, I didn't know that part. Okay.
At least that was what was touted at the time in 2018. So. You basically fought a lot of yokai. It looks like.
Oh,
but tied to microtransactions in a cell phone game. So
Right.
how far would that go?
Not interested in that whatsoever. No matter how beautiful it is.
Exactly.
Not for me.
Locking an art style behind a game like that's not the greatest idea. Wouldn't be surprised if it didn't make it off the ground because of that structure. But
Yeah. Well, this game, if I could just throw in one little ditty before we wrap things up. I remember I was so excited for this game. This was one of my most anticipated games for like a year until it came out. And when it did come out, there was this huge controversy because, and let me know if you guys remember this or if you even knew about it at the time. When the game came out, the cover had I think it's called like the watermark of IGN. So basically they just like copied and pasted IGN's art from like the promotional material of Okami and put it on the box art. And it's like, you can see it in the background. It just has the IGN logo. And so there's this game that's dedicated to beauty and traditional art, and you just see the IGN logo in the background. So there was a huge uproar about that, and I was part of it, to be honest. And they did try to address it by mailing out corrected versions of the cover, but also you had the option of these other covers as well. So I got like all 4 of the possible covers, and they're really, really cool. I still have them to this day, and they make the box art really stunning and look like a painting. So in the end, it was a crappy, silly situation, but I ended up with these pretty cool box art covers.
That's a little funny to look back on. I'd almost just leave the IGN one on there just for laughs.
And actually, now that I think of it, so this is the strategy guide.
Yeah.
You can see it on the actual strategy guide.
Wow.
The game.
Wow.
I don't know if you guys can see
Can't
it.
see it very well in the
crazy.
camera there.
Yeah, but if you look it up online,
That's
it's
funny.
very clear.
I'll have to look that up.
Really embarrassing.
That's awesome little trivia there.
I'll never forget it.
Well, guys, I think that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for talking about Okami and bringing that to the table. That is, it's one I'm definitely gonna have to pick up soon. It's always been on my list, and I never dove in, bit the bullet, as you say. So, I really need to. I
Please do.
I just keep putting it off. Like there's other games that I'd rather get, and that's sad because I hear of how good this is. And I don't know why I'm stuck in that mindset. I really need to pick that one up and play it. And maybe my reasoning now is, it's an older game, so it won't hold up. But it sounds like it still holds up. Other than the walking thing, maybe the walking mechanic might bother me a little bit, but that's not enough to keep me from playing it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, like at first you might notice it and be like, oh, this is odd, but you completely forget after you start playing it. So yeah, nothing to worry about. But yeah, it is. This game is one of the games that I'm most nostalgic for outside of Banjo-Kazooie, and that's really saying something. So this game just made me fall in love with video games all over again. Because in 2008, there's just something about the gaming, what's the word, atmosphere or gaming culture that, I don't know, it's just getting kind of old. There's just a lot of rehashed ideas, and this to me was kind of a breath of fresh air. It was familiar but unique in its own way, and I just have so much passion for this game, and I do hope that people get to experience it. And it's actually quite cheap, so if you're a digital game lover, you should probably get it for, I don't know, like $15 or so.
If it goes on sale, it hits about 15. I'm waiting on that $10 mark, and I'll probably pick it up. And
I think I got it for like $12 or something when I got it. Maybe, I can't remember for sure.
I mean, for this kind of a game, that is a bargain, and
for sure,
you cannot go wrong with $12 for this massive Zelda-like adventure. And actually, according to IGN, this game got Game of the Year in 2005, or I'm sorry, 2006, which is the same year that Twilight Princess came out. So Twilight Princess was runner-up to Okami for Game of the Year.
Because they had their watermark on the cover.
Right, true.
Well,
a little bias.
I guess it worked out in the end.
Right. And if you're interested in the physical copy of this game for Switch, there's I believe it's Japanese only, but if it's still available on Play Asia, I believe you can because my friend just got it. It is genuinely stunning. It is the most beautiful box art you will see on Switch, period. and the inside is beautiful as well, and it really does the game justice by creating this stunning piece of art for the game. So please check it out.
Definitely, yeah. Well, I think we've painted a good picture for everybody, so we'll go ahead and sign off
good
now.
one.
You can find the show at thenintendovillage.com/Nintendo Nostalgia, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. You can find us on Facebook at Nintendo NOS, on our Twitter at Nintendo_NOS. You can find us on our Instagram at Nintendo NOSIN. Shoot us an email at NintendoNostalgiaIN@gmail.com. You can also give us a call on our hotline, share your memories, and show us some love at 317-969-5690. Guys, that brings us to the end of the episode. We will catch you next week. Later, Preston.
Bye.
Bye, guys.